Someone just knocked at my door. I may have to join you again in a second.
See if they want to be on the show.
Ooh.
I think we're live.
Yeah.
It's our weekly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas, the latest techniques, project experiences, to audio secrets. Here's where you find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. And Mike just stepped out to answer his door. Let's play some bets. Is it UPS? Do you think it's the Ups man?
Oh man, it's typically their style to come in this late in the day.
Yeah. And what do you think he got? Is it like, let's think.
It better be something cool. I mean, he likes messing around with cool music gear, cool sound tech.
Yeah.
I want to see him share what he got on the show right now.
He'd do an unboxing of it'd be like
yes. Everyone loves I've never actually watched an unboxing video. I understand that that's one of those cool things, but I've never actually done it.
I love them. I got to be honest. I think they're pretty fun. I just watched one this past weekend because there's a piece of audio gear I wanted to buy, but I didn't know what was going to come in the box, and the description didn't say what was included. So I just watched an unboxing video to figure out what was in there.
Oh.
Okay, Mike. We have placed our bets that you have received something spectacular from the Ups man, and we want you to do an unboxing right now, live for all of us.
Well, yes, it was this tea. Just showed up and handed it to me, and I felt honor-bound to accept it. I explained that I was in the middle of a broadcast. It wasn't a great time, but who's going to turn down some nice mountain chai? So I'm sorry I left, but as you can see, it was for an important reason.
It was very much. So in the box is your disintegrator gun. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Sadly not featured on this particular mug, but those of you old enough to remember the Warner Brothers canon will, of course, remember there's a disintegrator gun associated with, is it Marvin the Martian, I think?
Yeah.
Marvin the Martian. One of my favorites. I think he's awesome. What is that? Is that a hair? Hey, Vince, how you been? We haven't been on a show in a while.
I know. It's been kind of weird, but hey, I'm really glad to be back because I could use some more great big kabooms.
I'm not going to ask. I don't even know what that means. Mike! Mike, how are your kabooms?
They're great. I think Vince was running with the motif of Marvin the Martian because he complains about the lack of earth-shattering kabooms.
Oh.
So I think now that we've set up
I struggled.
we
Sorry
have to
about
run with
that.
this throughout the whole show. So any kind of name dropping of Warner Brothers characters, I think that's going to just be our decoration for this particular episode.
I cannot do the... That's it, folks, at the end. So somebody else is going to have to do it.
I'll just find a recording of Powerhouse Suite and have that running along so we could Mickey Mouse our little dance animations to it.
Those are the days. What was your favorite Mickey Mouse episode? Or no, sorry. What was your favorite Bugs Bunny episode? Can you pick one?
Gosh, I'm not sure.
We could also go into sound design from here because, damn it, that was some of the best.
That's true. I have to admit, I really love pretty much all the Roadrunner cartoons. Yeah. And one of the things about those is that it's all sound design. Everything is sound design. There's zero dialogue. Yeah, there are the signs that say oops or help that Wile E. Coyote will do, but those perfectly placed bits of sound, whether it be a little musical accent or just that perfectly distant haft as Wile E. Coyote hits the canyon floor. There's so much good sound design happening for the Roadrunner cartoons.
To this day, that's still in my head. When that soft, pillowy, when at the distance, at a far distance, something impacts something dusty or hard or dirty. It's always a. I just love that. The quietness of that is so effective.
I'd like to know who came up with the convention of I think a major second on the xylophone to accompany somebody blinking, such as. I'm specifically thinking of like Wile E. Coyote is just run into midair, looks down. The awful realization dawns on him. He blinks twice, then you get that xylophone second in perfect sync. Somebody had to dig through a click book and figure out the exact tempo that was going to work for that, and then he falls and you hear your pillowy explosion sound.
Well, it was Raymond Scott who did the music, right?
His music, I think, was incorporated or influenced, but I think Carl Stallings was the man He's a
Oh, you're
music
right.
director, right?
You're right. It's Carl Stallings. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Raymond Scott, did he have a hand, or Carl Stallings, in the sound design since it was so musical? Especially when they're like, when somebody's tiptoeing, it's always xylophone too. Ding, 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 you know?
Or pizzicato.
Or pizzicato, yes.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It is more pizzicato in my brain than it is.
I think if you have an upset stomach, you have to have a roll on the timpani while somebody pushes down the pitch bend pedal, so you get the brrrr effect. To use the technical musical term, and I think that was obligatory for like if somebody's stomach because they just swallowed TNT or something like that. And that was a kind of a trope as well.
Well, I have a number of favorite. The reason I asked the Bugs Bunny is because I have a number of favorites. One of my favorites is the lady in the movie theater with the big hat that he has, and it's him actually. It's Bugs Bunny in a big hat, and as he walks to get to his seat, he goes, "Excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, pardon me, pardon me."
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that one? And people get so ticked because his hat is so big. That one cracks me up. Another favorite of mine is when Yosemite Sam Bugs Bunny has put dynamite. Yosemite Sam put dynamite under a specific key, and Bugs Bunny keeps playing the passage wrong on the piano. I don't remember what the song is.
Yeah.
The last like two notes, or the last note is da 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 da, but he goes da 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 blah, and Yosemite Sam gets so mad he just goes over there, hits the key, and the piano explodes all over him.
I remember what you're talking about.
But my favorite was called Rabbitson Crusoe, where Bugs Bunny is shipwrecked on an island, and I think it's Yosemite Sam, who decides he wants to cook them in a pot. And at one point, Bugs Bunny's like hanging out because it's not hot yet, even though the pot is over a flame. It's just kind of lukewarm, and he's all relaxing in a sauna. And he keeps blowing out the match that Yosemite Sam is trying to light the fire with. And Yosemite Sam has to run across these rocks in the water to get to his broken down ship to get one more match and come back. Then he lights it, and Bugs Bunny blows it out. He has to go. But every time he goes out into the water, there's this shark that has a dog sound effect that chases him back up on land. And he's got a stick hanging on a tree that he just beats the shark back into the water with every time. That cracks me up. That's called Rabbitson Crusoe.
I would wonder how much of our common cultural knowledge of Wagner and the music of the Ring Cycle comes from the Bugs Bunny episode "What's Opera, Doc?"
Oh man!
Like, because I mean, would the average person have a vague association of the Flight of the Valkyries with a magic helmet, if not for that cartoon?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I mean, I would say absolutely that my classical knowledge started with Bugs Bunny and then moved into violin lessons.
So it went downhill from there, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, wasn't my favorite time. I'm putting Rabbitson Crusoe's link in the chat here for anybody interested. That's a great episode. 1956. It's amazing how long ago these were created and how they're still, in the 1970s and 80s when I'm seeing them, they're still just as rich with entertainment. It wasn't really tied to the time of the 50s. Speaking of tied to the time, hey guys, you want to talk about surround headphones?
Ooh, surround headphones.
Surround headphones. There's a Kickstarter coming out. I got to get to it because I think I've somehow moved away from it. Finding it. It's called OSSIC, OSSIC, and I'm putting this in the chat so that other people can see what I mean. See what I did there?
I do. Oof.
I'm here all day. Throw money. So they have 6,000 backers for this OSSIC immersive 3D audio headphone. Their goal was $100,000. They've hit 1.5 million, and they have 16 days to go. They're selling these you get a pair at $199. One OSSIC headphone, that's all gone. So $219, all gone. So now you're at $250 if you want to get in on a pair of OSSIC headphones.
Man,
have you guys checked it out?
It's interesting. There obviously there have been surround headphones in the past. That they've been around for a few years now. I actually remember, what was it? There was a Korean company that made these headphones. They were primarily known for computer hardware, and then they made these 7.1 headphones. And I thought, okay, these are kind of interesting. They're kind of cool. It didn't sound at the time, this was back in the early 2000s, anything like a good surround sound system. But it was interesting, and I was always hoping that eventually the technology would get better. And I think it has, but I don't know. With OSSIC, they're doing this thing about, what is it? HRTF anatomy calibration. OSSIC X instantly calibrates to your head and torso without any lab needed. This enables incredibly accurate sound placement for a higher level of sound quality and immersion. And I'm actually reminded a little bit about some stuff that, what's his name? I think it was Scott Selfon, who is the audio guy at Microsoft.
Yeah.
And he was talking about HRTFs and the idea of having personalized HRTFs. And he said that after some experimentation, he thought it's not really all that. If I give you a general HRTF versus your personal HRTF, you probably couldn't tell which one is actually the one that is based on you.
Yeah.
Which is, so I'm a little bit skeptical. I did see them over at GDC earlier this year, and I thought, okay, this is interesting. And it sounded pretty cool, but I'm still not sure we're over the hump yet. I'm still not sure this is really something that's going to sound amazing, great, absolutely must-have. But when is anything really, truly amazing, great, must-have?
I don't know if we've broken through the technology barrier when it comes to anything that's 3D or surround in that sense. Because like 3D televisions, where are they now? All the rage 2 years ago, and now barely anybody's talking about them. 3D movies as well. And all of that has happened before. Not 3D TVs, but 3D movies has happened before. Virtual reality has happened before and didn't take off. And I'm very skeptical about where it's going to go. I got excited about the Oculus and got the first dev kit Kickstarter jobby, and then got promptly sick to my stomach and decided not to use that thing again. That's a true story. But that's me. I don't take well to even sitting on my couch playing a first-person shooter. I get motion sickness from it. So, I want to give money and I want it to happen. And only if we invest in this can we actually start to move to where it needs to be successful. If we all ignore it and say it'll never happen, which is the cynical side of me, then I'm not, we're not helping technology. But on the other side of that is I'm not sure that VR is going to be a thing. And if I feel that it's just going to come and go, just like it did when Nintendo had their VR helmet. Then 3D is come and gone yet again. At least we didn't have to wear those funky blue and red glasses. These times they were cool like shades, but I don't know. But now here we are with 3D headphones, and I'm skeptical as well. And there's also 3D software, which we were just checking out by Waves, called Waves NX, which I'll post and we'll probably get onto. Is it that I don't want to believe that I'm just so cynical that I won't believe in these things? I want to give them a fair shot. Like I went through pretty in depth with Waves NX and still wasn't ultimately impressed, but for more scientific reasons than just personal reasons. So I want these things to be successful, but they just aren't hitting it for me. Is it me? Am I just somehow subconsciously being stubborn about my beliefs, or are they not coming up to what they need to be to impress us to really take off?
Well, man, I really don't know. The virtual mix room, just going back to Waves NX, there have been lots of different variations on that. I remember back in the early mid-2000s going to various Audio Engineering Society conferences, and they would have all this software for not just visualizing the mix, but also placing software tools in 3D. People were going crazy with what you could do with virtual reality and what we can do with workflow. The tools are pretty interesting, and people are making some really far-fetched efforts to create wacky stuff in the virtual world. And I think none of those have ever actually hit. With games, it's interesting how many games have come from not people making entertainment for entertainment's sake, but from people realizing that there are some important tools that are worth learning, and let's make games around that. So I always thought it was interesting, what are the real interesting virtual reality tools that people are making? And we see that in some places. So using things like the Oculus for the driving of drones, and not just driving of drones, but really, really effective driving of aerial drones. And so it seems like there's a place for that. We can see how that sort of very functional use will translate into the entertainment world. And I imagine that people are just going to continuously get better at things that have to do with racing and simulation for these virtual reality devices. And I think the best experiences right now for the Oculus are those types of experiences. But anything else? Well, I'm not sure yet. But I would probably guess that it will start from someone that makes something really effective, for this sort of pure industrial functionality that we need to instantiate.
Yeah. So, Mike, did you check out? Well, I know you did, but did you decide to go with Waves NX?
I actually did, in spite of your dire warnings, and primarily because they were offering it on sale for $50, and which still may be the case. And at that price point, I was willing to take an experiment and just see if it was useful in offering another mixed perspective. But I took your warnings to heart, and I guess we should back up. We should pop up a level in the queue and sort of contextualize what we're talking about, in case people out there don't know what NX is. So, Kyle, do you want to give a quick rundown of what the software purports to do?
Well, I will, yeah. First of all, for some reason, our Geek Shed said that I was kicked out, but left me in as a member of the chat room, so I couldn't tell if I was kicked out or not. So I don't know if anybody saw the links that I had posted. Do you see links in the chat room to NX?
Actually, I don't.
Okay,
so you might want to repost that.
I'm going to repost that right now. Here we go. So NX, we'll start there, and tell me if you see that in there now. It'll let me know if I've been accidentally kicked out. It's a virtual room mix over headphones. So it's very similar to the Kickstarter that we're talking about, which I will also post that link of OSSIC here in just a second, in that the software in X is going to put you in a place via headphones as if you were sitting in front of some monitors, close monitors. And then on top of that, because if you were to turn your head while you're mixing something, it's going to adjust the sound in the opposite ear so that it makes it feel like you're actually looking at those monitors. Now, they're not going for surround sound. That's not my understanding. Are they, Mike? Did they go for surround sound? I
believe I saw some mention of surround in the manual, so that might be part of it.
All right, gotcha. So, well, anyway, the idea was to simulate as if you were actually mixing in front of some close field monitors, and then give you that functionality to move your head. And it uses your webcam to track your faces so that when you're turning, it will make adjustments to the sound. So your webcam has to be in front of your mix so that it can tell which way you're looking, which is brilliant in my book. Let's put something in front of the mix that we're trying to look at.
To be fair, you don't need to use the head tracking feature. There's a little switch that'll turn it on or off.
Stop it. I'm trying to ruin their marketing campaign.
By the way, just to clarify things for our listeners, NX is a plugin that you instantiate on your mix bus. It is just for monitoring, obviously, and it's nothing you would actually include in your mix unless you were being bold and experimental.
Yeah.
So that's the big picture of what we're talking about. It's a monitoring simulation so that if you are, say, a college student in a dorm and the acoustics are suboptimal, or maybe just live in an apartment and have your setups in your living room or something like that, or whatever reason is, this is attempting to simulate in your headphones the effect of being in a nice, presumably acoustically treated room.
Well, you did a better job than me explaining that. Thank you, because I did a horrible job. So Mike asked me and all the guys what we thought of it, and I decided to dig in because I am pessimistic about these things, admittedly. And I dug in, and my pessimism did not change. I felt that it was too muddy in the mid-range. I would compare back and forth. I did it with headphones, without headphones, went between my mixing Yamahas and the software. And if you went like this, really fast, you had these trails of the audio still stuck in the other ear, which is kind of fun. Not that I do that a lot when I'm mixing, but I will say that for $50, you get one of the coolest mid-range filters I've ever heard in a in a plug-in. You can actually crank that thing. Don't use it for monitoring. Crank it completely to center, which you have this control of where the speakers are going to be, what angle it expects that your speakers are at, right? And you can go, okay, I'm completely centered. And then when you stick it right in the center, there's this other knob, I can't remember right now, Mike, maybe you can help me, that you can turn, and it's one of the coolest filtering, flanging effects I've heard come out of software. So that alone for $50 is worth it. You know, instead of putting it on your mix bus, put it on some 2-channel or a group or something, and then write some automation. If that's I don't know if that knob that you can turn is available in automation, but if it is, you've got something pretty cool there.
Kyle is being funny right now.
I'm being truthful. I thought that was the coolest part of it. I really did, and I even pointed that out to you, Mike. I said that's a cool thing there. Right,
but it is kind of like buying a computer and using it as a space heater. You know, it's not really its intended purpose.
But for $50, it's a pretty good flanger.
I guess for $50, you can use it any way you want. And if you're curious what a mix room simulation sounds like on your mix when listened to in a room, it's like room squared. I guess you could do that as well. I will say that it is kind of an uncanny auditory equivalent of an optical illusion, because when I first turned it on, I, for a second, could swear that audio was coming out of my monitors, and I looked, and they were, in fact, muted. So it really does at least give you an eerie sensation that you're listening to sound in a room, at least when you start using it.
That's cool.
But Kyle, you said that the mid-range response was not representative. Is that right?
I'm trying to remember. It was muddy. It wasn't clear. It wasn't precise. It was muddy. And the bass end of it. What were my comments in the email on the bass end? Because now I can't remember. But you know, to be fair, I use these Yamaha HS50Ms, which are the modern equivalent of the NS10s, and I use them all the time. And they are crisp and brittle and expose things in the mid-range that I felt that software wasn't being as crisp and brittle about. Now, you don't want to spend your day listening on these speakers that I use. They're not made for that. And I felt that the software through the headphones made a more desirable listening environment if you're going to spend a lot of time mixing and you wanted to have something that's more comfortable to listen to. In the end, I feel that you should switch back to something that's more critical than that software so you can make sure that you don't have some sort of degradation in the mid-range or you've lost your low end or something, because the software is definitely making a change to the audio, and not a crisp one, I didn't feel.
So coming in with your very refined ear, obviously you're setting the bar pretty high. So my question is, for the average, well, let's see, let me carve out a scenario. Let's say someone's starting out in game audio, and they don't have a really well-treated room to work with. They've just got they're in an apartment somewhere, or maybe they're at home because they're a student. Does this provide $50 worth of value, or do you think it's so distorting, it provides such a distorted view of your mix that it does more harm than good?
If you're using it for mixing, I felt that it did more harm than good. Because in the end, you were going to have to, I felt that, I know what I would do. I can't speak for others, and certainly, Mike, you got it anyway, and it appealed to you, and that's fantastic. So there's really, I want to hear, you know, kind of like how you've been enjoying it more than just hear my pessimistic response. But in just being who I am, I have to be that person because I've tried to get out of it, and you can't. I still feel that even when the day is done, you're going to have to switch back to something that's more critical so that you can hear your mix and make sure that you've hit all the marks. And if you're mixing on a train with headphones and you want that kind of environment, yeah, that's cool, but you're mixing on a train with headphones. Wait until you get home.
Well, maybe you're running away from home. Did you ever think of that? Like in that Bronski Beat video from the 80s.
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
No, it's a little too obscure. I'm sorry.
Wow. Maybe. Or maybe I'm not willing to admit it. So, Mike, but what did you think? What did you love about it? Tell me what's going on.
I think it was, as I said, I thought it was strikingly convincing from the standpoint of feeling you were in a different space than you were. But I don't have your ear, so I can't really judge it in terms of its accuracy and ultimately how useful it is. I did do a little A/B between the room and what it was trying to simulate, but the simulated room was so much better than my actual mixing environment. I didn't feel like I could really judge one on the basis of the other. So I'm as with all things mix related, I'm inclined to defer to your much more educated opinion.
So do you have a 5.1 monitoring setup for your room, or is it just stereo?
Just stereo.
Okay. So were you messing around with the virtual stereo room, or
yeah, exactly
also the
right.
Okay.
No, because just doing I mean I don't really do a lot of sound design, and my music tends to be stereo, so I don't have a lot of investment in a 5.1 production concept, and I would usually hire an engineer to do that anyway if the need arose.
Okay.
I didn't try the 5.1 either. I probably should have. And then that leads us right back to these headphones again, and all the others.
I'm kind of wondering, for both of you guys, did you put in the custom numbers in order to customize the HRTF? So you did all that thing with measuring the size of your head and the distance between your ears and all that?
And almost ended up with a divorce when my wife walked in and said, "Why are you wrapping a tape measure around your head? That's the last crazy thing I'm going to tolerate from you." That didn't really happen.
Nor is it likely to be. But for the rest of you out there, what we're referring to is the software is calibrated by the dimensions of your head, because the space between your ears, like I don't mean like that in a rhetorical way. I mean the literal space between your ears, the distance in space, obviously has an impact on resonance and frequencies and perception of stereo. So they ask you, please get a tape measure and wrap it around your forehead and then wrap it between your ears and type in those numbers. They will provide a set of defaults based on, I guess, a statistical average head size. But in order to fine-tune it, you should actually try to wait for a time when nobody else is around and grab a tape measure. So that's what we're talking about.
You know, on that subject of changing gears, that's my segue back into 5.1 headphones. So there's a bunch of 5.1 headphones out there. And the reason I'm kind of going back to this is because I was just reading Matt M's comment, which I keep scrolling too far past. There's talk about music not translating in an immersive way with VR. I wonder if room simulation like the NX plugin might help with that. What do you think, Mike?
Talk about music not translating. What I've basically taken away from GDC on that subject is that you have to be conservative with music mixing in VR. And the reason for that is if we start positioning instruments in space in a manner that's more sophisticated than stereo, we start to confuse the spatial position of instruments, which are moving, they're in a fixed spot relative to our head, and therefore they're moving relative to the environment, with physical objects in the environment. So if you've got this really elaborate surround mix of your music, well, what does it mean? Are you in a room with a band, and is the band weirdly following your head, like it's your own personal band, and they're rushing around to make sure that they maintain the same relative position? So if you're saying that, if I'm interpreting the question right, I think there's a whole lot of detail in the sense of space and music that we actually want to omit because there's so much going on sonically in a VR environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so my understanding of what can happen with surround sound, this is moving on past what we were just talking about. Mike makes a great point. Is that there are two ways to handle it, I've come to learn. And there's the typical way of, like Mike says, I turn my head and that band is constantly in the same place, right? If I'm listening to some music. But I can hear the reflections coming off the wall because in the headphones, they've done something. I've seen some headphones have multiple speakers inside of them, and they're driving these rear speakers faintly while they drive the mid speakers more prominently, you know, to represent what surround would be, and that's more of a traditional sense. If you take that off your head and you're sitting in a room in a 5.1 system, then the band stays in its spot even though you move your head around. If you put headphones on, the band moves with your head. That's why the headphones are the NX software is saying that it's going to do some head tracking so that it can tell where you are to make it feel like more like you're in a room. Now, recently I came across, and I'm leading up to this, the second way I understand 5.1 to work when it comes to a stereo source, making it feel like it's 5.1, brought to us by Howard Hughes. Strange comment, but it's true. The Hughes AK-100 is something I bought recently, and I tested one out and was blown away, and I picked one up. And it was built in the 90s, 90, 91, and it uses this SRS-based technology. And you guys are familiar with SRS? We've seen it on other products, right? SRS?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that back in the 90s, actually, because people were talking about that with adding on that technology into sound cards and whatnot.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So SRS apparently, and I'm going to do a classic Kyle is an idiot description. So there will drink every time I get something wrong. Don't plan to be sober in about 10 minutes. It says here, I'm going to read from their website. SRS is based on certain principles of human hearing that have been explored by the Hughes researchers and others over the years. In a stereo system, normally the sum signal, which is left plus right, contains all of the direct and centrally positioned sound. The different signal, left minus right and right minus left, provides spatial information. So you got direct down the middle, you got spatial on the side. And directional cues to the human hearing system. The Hughes system addresses the fact, and this is where there's a different type of way of doing 5.1. Addresses the fact that the transfer functions of human hearing is not constant. For example, sound coming from a straight ahead source has a different transfer function or frequency characteristics than sounds coming from the side or from the rear. And so what they've done with this unit is not done typical like phase shifting to make a stereo field sound wider or to make a mono source sound like it's stereo suddenly. And of course you can take this from stereo to 5.1, but instead there's some algorithm in there that's saying, here's how the human ear works. And the wider you make these knobs go, the more exaggerated we're going to do that math to make it sound wider and further away. And it was an amazing experience. Now I don't benefit from being able to have it track my head, and I get to move the head around, the band stays the same. But I will say that one thing I do when I widen a track is I use S1 by Waves, and my cohesion, is that what it's called? I call it the wrong thing every time, but it's the position of phase, and if it's ever negative, then you're losing frequency. So if you go from stereo to mono and you've got a negative cohesion or whatever it's called, you've lost a lot of volume and lost a lot of frequencies. And when you start to widen stuff, you start to get in that phase issue, and it starts to have that effect on your mono source. And so when you're dealing with games, and sometimes those games are going to be played on a single speaker like an iPhone, you know, you've lost volume, or you've lost the bass completely goes away, even though, you know, I guess it doesn't matter because it's an iPhone speaker, but you know what I'm getting at. Whereas this AK-100 by Hughes doesn't screw up the cohesion. So I can go as wide as I want, and it still stays all positive because it's not doing any kind of phase stuff to it. So that is taking a stereo source and making it wider, taking a mono source and making it stereo. Now this came out in 1991, so it doesn't have the take a stereo source and make it 5.1, but presumably the functionality is still the same. And so what headphone, what 5.1 software today is using that system rather than the traditional driving speakers for a sound that is specifically positioned behind me, or taking stereo signals and doing phase things to it so that it sounds like it's 5.1? Who's doing the math? Who's doing that ear math that I was just describing?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think in Sony's case, it's Sony, and people are working on that. It's got, all the different companies, I guess they have their own APIs, and it seems like it's a very rare breed that actually wants to develop their own stuff for conveying that spatialized audio outside of the APIs provided by the new VDR providers. Although I want to say that what's that company? The dude that is the ex-Bungie dude, Marty O'Donnell's company. I want to say that they're actually doing their own stuff for spatialization. But yeah, otherwise it's, kind of this trust in Sony or trust in Valve or whatnot.
Gotcha.
And who knows what they're doing? I'm not exactly sure, honestly, because I'm not a VR developer.
Yeah, me either. Is this do you think it's a Betamax versus VHS kind of thing where one of them is just going to win out?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's probably a little bit easier than that because, if you're making this software and supposedly you could just worry about Fmod and Wise and all those guys dealing with everything. We'll output it in a way that is good for PlayStation VR versus Vive versus Oculus. I think.
So, well, there's no answer for it yet. So we got how many VR glasses do we have on the horizon? We've got Oculus.
Well, Oculus is here now. I mean,
that's true.
It's kind of crazy that we are officially in the VR era for, actual consumer use. And
they've completely stayed away from auditory. So you're going to wear this 3D immersive view, but have a 2D stereo audio experience, right? And now Sony as well. What's theirs called?
They've got the PlayStation VR.
PlayStation. Does that include audio, or is it just face?
It does include audio.
Okay, so they're doing something. That's what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
There's the Vive as well.
Please.
Is it Vive or is it Vive?
Maybe it is Vive. That would make more sense.
Although
is it called Vive VR?
It's called the HTC Vive.
HTC Vive. Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
So those are the big three right now.
Okay, gotcha. And Sony is the only one doing audio, or is HTC also doing audio?
I believe HTC is also. Oh wait, I'm just trying to remember. No, I don't think they have the audio built in the dev kits that I've tried.
Okay. So if you want to be on the forefront of VR audio, let's call it, as an audio, a game audio dudette, then if dudette is acceptable, I hope so, I mean it in the nicest way, then what you're going to want to do is get yourself a dev kit for PlayStation and this headset. Now, how much does it cost to get a dev kit for the Sony VR or the PlayStation VR? Does anybody know?
Oh man, I do not remember.
Hey, great question for Alex.
Yeah, right. VR. I know we've to those watching the show, I know we've covered this 2 or 3 times, but there's so much action happening in this space, and being audio people, we're kind of trying to stay just ahead of the news to try to predict for everybody where you might want to go, so that you can, be valuable as a consultant or something or as an audio person in your company, and say, hey, this is where this is going right now, and it'll change, but this is where it is right now. And so I'm looking up. So I apologize for going over this yet again. But then again, We also got Kickstarter came out with the new 5.1 headphones, and that's the logical thought. Let me put on 5.1 headphones, and then let me put on some glasses, and that's what they went to E3 or to GDC with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you put them on, right? The headphones from the Kickstarter. What's it called? The OSSIC?
The OSSIC.
OSSIC. So you wore the OSSIC. Did you have on an Oculus as well?
I actually had on an HTC Vive.
Okay. And how did you feel when you moved around? What was your experience?
It was okay. I mean, it was a very brief experience, just looking around this world and trying to pinpoint audio sources without necessarily having that visual information, because often the stuff was coming from the side, so I would notice the sound and then turn my head and see that that was the actual source of the sound.
Okay, cool.
And it seemed okay. It seemed pretty cool. I mean, it seemed like a very cool little tech demo. But yeah, I'm still not sure about it. I think I don't know. I think for me it really comes down to, okay, that's a really cool thing, but where is the game that actually comes out of this? And once you're dealing with these headsets, is the game really about, oh, I'm going to give you this RO information and thus prompt you to rotate your head in a particular way, and you're going to have a lot more of a chance of whiplash with a VR headset than you are just moving around a stick on a PlayStation 4 controller. I'm not sure that that's a fun game of the separation and distinction of aural geographic information in a game world versus visual information and correlating that. Maybe there is a really good game in that. I mean, certainly there are some interesting audio-only games that have come out, but those are very few and far between. Certainly not part of the mainstream video game entertainment. But I'm still interested.
Yeah. So it's still growing. Mike,
did
you try it as well?
What's that?
Or did you try the headphones as well?
No, I didn't. I just have word of mouth.
Did you guys miss the heck out of me? Come on, that's an important question.
What was that?
Oh, never mind. It's okay.
Sorry.
I'm joking. I said, did you miss the heck out of me?
That goes without saying.
Of course. Let's see. There was something else on the surround front, though, because besides all the VR stuff, there was another surround sound announcement that came out of GDC, and that's that whole thing with using Dolby Atmos with Wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Wise announced that they have Dolby Atmos support, and this was in connection with a lot of other games announcing Dolby Atmos support in their various updates, like the Blizzard MOBA game Overwatch. That was announced. Hey, the new update that has Dolby Atmos support, and why? Because it's a Wise game, and Wise now has Dolby Atmos support. And I guess there are some end users out there that are hooking up their computers and PlayStation 4s to receivers that have Dolby Atmos support, and that's kind of cool. I personally have only experienced Dolby Atmos in theaters and thought that is really cool. Gravity was the first Dolby Atmos movie I ever watched, and that was absolutely fantastic. It was a great aural experience. I wonder how that will translate over to a home experience. And it's one of those things that's supposed to be, you don't necessarily need 5 speakers, you can have 6 speakers, you can have 7 speakers, you can have 8 speakers, la 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 la. It will sound good on various permutations. Maybe it will work out. Not too many people have those things, but I guess it's still cool to see that people are thinking about that, both developers like Blizzard and the middleware guys like Audio Kinetic and Wise. That's a cool thing.
Yeah. And that I could see lasting a while, like rather than a 3D television, which is cool. My brother has one. I had fun sitting on the couch with the glasses watching stuff. But he's bought the TV, so he's going to have it for a long time. But there's not as many 3D movies being released. There was talk of 3D television stations, which I don't know if that ever happened with the big shift that we went from antenna television to digital televisions. But for Dolby Atmos, I mean, that seems like it's something that could last for a very long time, because who doesn't already have a 5.1 system in their home theater? So if you're the person who's buying Blu-ray DVDs to play them in your system, Mike goes like this. But I guess what I'm getting at is probably, I feel safe to say that there are more people who have 5.1 than have 3D televisions. And so if you put Dolby Atmos on your game or your movie or your television show, I think you're going to have a longer shelf life of people enjoying that material. So I can see Dolby Atmos being around a lot longer than 3D televisions. Now go ahead.
I was just say, I wonder about that statistic. I wonder if anyone's actually calculated that or surveyed for that.
Yeah, how many 5.1s?
I mean, I actually do have a 3D television, and I have a 5.1 system, which puts me in a very, very, very small population there. And we know that there are very few people, well, relatively few people that have 5.1 systems. We also know that there are even fewer people that have correctly set up 5.1 systems. Where are the rear speakers and connected in relationship to the actual people? Do they have an ideal listening spot in the room? Is there a sweet spot at all? How big is that? If they're doing 7.1, what's going on with those side rear speakers? How is the bass management? Is that actually properly set up on their system, or do they actually have their 0.1 set up to be a proper 0.1?
But some of the receivers, like the one I have, has a microphone, and you put it in the spot where you're going to be watching television, and then you just let it do its thing, and it makes its volume adjustments to all the speakers that it tests throughout the room. And very similar to your software that I wanted to talk about in just a minute, because I guarantee you that our sponsor, iZotope, is looking into some sort of awesomeness for 5.1 sound, for VR sound and all that cool jazz. I mean, they already handle 5.1, right? But that would be an awesome company to get in this space to do something amazing with, because they already do amazing stuff with their software. Yes, thank you, iZotope, for sponsoring the show. Please, everybody, go to iZotope.com. They've got deals constantly. I can't even name one specifically right now. There's that delay that we talked about a bunch. Of course, one of my favorite things is vinyl, which is really cool. I love how you can tune in the year, which is a really cool feature. Oh, I want to have a Victrola from 1930, and there it is. Now your stuff sounds like that. That's really, really awesome. So thank you, iZotope, for sponsoring the show. Everybody go out and check out iZotope.com and like them on Facebook and tweet about them at iZotope Inc. on Twitter. So, Vince, back to your room setup. Does your receiver at home on your 3D TV with your 5.1 fanciness, by the way, I hope the doors aren't locked because Mike and I are on our way over, did it have a speaker that a microphone that you could play into and it would auto set itself up?
Yes, it does.
So great move forward for helping people with 5.1.
It's really nice. It used to be, I remember when I got it, I was looking primarily at Pioneer systems, and the high-end Pioneer systems, you could plug in this microphone and put the microphone in your ideal listening position and calibrate all of your speakers to that, and it will do all the rest. It will do little EQ tweaks to compensate for the room. It's really great that. I had actually done that first at home before I decided, well, why don't I do a similar thing over at work? So I actually have that for my work system as well. And I use this thing called IK Multimedia's Advanced Room Correction 2. So it's ARC 2.
Yes.
And it's pretty cool. Basically, you put a microphone here in this one spot where I am, and you have it listen You have it listen to various tones coming from your speakers. It listens to what the room is going to sound like, and it does a little bit of finishing EQ on the sound that's coming out of those monitors, so that you can hear as flat as possible. And it's very useful for that.
And you use Arc right there in the studio, and how long have you been using it?
Wow, it's been a few years now. I want to say 2 or 3 years.
Have you ever had it fail or I don't know, forget to put the plug-in in or something? And how starkly different is your room?
Well, I've never had it fail. Yeah, the typical way you use it is to put it on the final output while you're monitoring, and then make sure to disable the plugin when you export. But I actually have it running in a separate VST host that all of my computer's Windows audio is fed into.
Okay.
So all the audio that I get is actually corrected. It's pretty useful that. So I actually have this host actually run every time I start up Windows, so I actually never even have to think about it.
Does it give you any hint how to set up sound baffles in your room to match the sound that's coming out of it? Like, could you use it to say, we're making an adjustment to bass because we can tell from the microphone that you got a bunch of bass in that back corner back there?
Kind of.
Go put in a bass trap?
Yeah, you can see how extreme of a change it wants to do.
Okay.
It's like, oh, okay, this is what I'm hearing right now. And actually, what I've done is a combination of moving my monitors as well as using my sound card's built-in key Q on output, because that is built-in RME DSP, which, well, has no latency on it.
Yeah.
So I figure I'll just do a little bit of light correction there before I have another EQ do final correction over there with some latency.
Gotcha. Well, that's very useful, though. How much does Arc cost if somebody wanted to get it?
It's pretty cheap. I mean, I got mine on sale for close to $100. I think the normal price on that thing is $250. So it's I think it's actually a pretty affordable piece. I think the thing about it is that it's not something that will make a horrible room immediately sound great. I mean, if you have a room where there's reflections all over the place, and I don't know, let's just say you live in an 8-foot by 8-foot, 8-foot polished concrete box, it's not going to make that thing sound good. But if you're willing to make changes, and you have this room that sounds okay, you know that it could use some changes here and there, and you put that software on, it can do those little changes, and it will sound pretty good.
Very cool. And so with Waves in X, Mike, it's basically doing the same thing, but in headphones, right? It's making, well, it doesn't have a sound source to listen to. So it's measuring your head, and it's also taking into account how far away you are from your speakers, and then creating that system for you, but in a perfect environment. So it doesn't have to listen to reflections or anything. But it's, you know, basically the same kind of software, right? Except one's for headphones and one's for a room.
I think it's the same concept. You know, you can simulate the difference between listening one way and another if you understand all the physics behind it. So theoretically, you could pipe in, you know, any arbitrary acoustic simulation into any output system if you can control the environment.
Is another question I had, I'm just going through my list, is oh crud, what's the name of that technology that they were using on the Gravity movie?
Oh, Atmos?
Atmos, yeah. Is Atmos ambisonics, or is it some other technology?
I don't think it's ambisonic. I mean, it does have height information there, but I don't think it is actually ambisonic.
I was wondering, because it can go anywhere and still, no matter what your speaker setup, it still have the same kind of sound. I was wondering if it was,
or maybe it is. I'm like, I could be just totally wrong there, and in fact, it is using ambisonics.
So Waves is talking about that. Matt M has brought up, and I think Chase has brought it up too, that Waves is doing ambisonic work now to get in the game. New immersive audio technologies, including ambisonic, full pipeline support for playback, rotation, encoding, decoding, and support for all WISE and MIC DSP effects. Geometry-based reverberation, spatialized dynamic early reflections. I do this because you guys love my voice and you want to sample me one day and make me a robot in your game. So there's exciting things on the front. Pessimistic Kyle, which is my job, says, get Waves NX because it's a really cool flanger. He says, I'm not so sure about investing in the Kickstarter for the surround headphones, OSSIC, because I would have to hear it to believe it, and we should all do that, shouldn't we? But the one person in our group who did hear it did like it, but not sure it's there yet. Would that be safe to say, Vince?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like it, but it's not there. It's not there yet. I want it to be there. I really, truly do.
Boy, don't we? Because if we put on our VR helmets and put on some headphones or have some headphones built into the helmets that just do whatever it is that we're waiting to experience through our ears and be impressed by, then that's going to be an awesome gaming experience. Of course, it's going to be a lot of broken legs over coffee tables from people playing first-person shooters with VR helmets on, but you know, that's why I'm studying medical stuff right now. I'm at the local Fred's College studying how to be a surgeon. I hear good things about them.
Uh-oh.
They handed me a hacksaw and a hammer and said, the first thing you need to learn is field surgery. I'm not sure what that meant, but I was curious if either one of you wanted to volunteer to help.
I volunteer Michael. He is closer.
Can't be that different from field audio, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to bow the hacksaw surrounded by trees. Guys, you got anything else? Because we are in the closing minutes of the show.
Ooh.
And I think we beat this dead horse for our like 5th show talking about it, but gosh darn it, there's so many exciting things that keep popping up. I get so excited about it.
Oh my gosh. Actually, one thing I just realized was that there was a big Unreal update that had dropped. And apparently a whole lot of the new features that have come in the latest version of Unreal are audio related.
Oh, no way.
Including more advanced stuff with 3D geometry and obstruction and occlusion and spatialization and all that stuff. It was a really huge list, and it would honestly take forever to go through it because I remember scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through that changelog to read that. Wow. But I just want to say props to those guys at Epic and really doing a nice service to audio and really caring about it with this latest update.
Or unreally caring about it with this latest update.
Haha, I see what you did there.
So are you guys paying? I'm paying. There's a monthly for Unreal, right? And there's another one I'm paying too for. Maybe it's just Unity.
Yeah, I'm actually not doing Unreal. I have friends that are doing Unreal work. Some for console stuff, some for some mobile stuff. And I just know that when they heard the news, they were very happy to hear it.
Nice. See what you did there. Well, I think it's a good thing. I think you pay like $10 a month or something, and I don't mind spending some money, even if I don't use it, just to support technology, to keep it moving forward, to give them a couple bucks here and there.
But
that's my opinion.
$10 a month on Unreal, is that different from, say, the 10 or 20? What is it? Is it $30 a month if you want a rolling license for Pro Tools these days?
No, geez.
Is there a difference there?
I am perpetual licensed up, so I do not know what's going on, but there is a big difference if you were to ask me to pay.
Oh man!
Because Pro Tools, boy, why do you guys do this to me? I can't resist this, but Pro Tools 11, people had Pro Tools 11, and then Pro Tools 12 came out with this whole new pricing structure and all these new features, and then didn't deliver any of them on Pro Tools 12 day, but did take your money. But then started trickling out these features that they promised that I think some people thought they were actually going to get day one, because why wouldn't you? And now at 12.5, they have finally released the, hey, let's play together collaboratively online.
Oh, wow.
Halfway through the point system of Pro Tools 12 to 12, Pro Tools 13, they go, hey, here's this major feature we hung a carrot over your wallet with and watched your money walk out. But I'm perpetual license, so I just paid an upgrade fee. But it torments me that they pull moves like that, and how ubiquitous Pro Tools is to not only the game industry, but album audio industry, whatever you want to call that. I don't like it when a company does things like that.
It's almost as if they were being paid for the passage of time instead of being paid to develop features. Huh. Could it be that that's what a subscription model is?
You know what? Here's what I'm going to do for my next game contract. I'm going to charge $1 billion, and I'm going to tell you how awesome the sound's going to be, and then 4 years later, I'll deliver it to you. Seems fair. Or one of my favorites is I want to be the sound designer who just writes the expression of what happened when you've got CC on your television show. Big kaboom. That's my sound design. I don't want to produce a big kaboom. I just want to write big kaboom, very loud and impressive sound. That's what I want to do. That's my level of sound design.
I believe that's called pre-ordering.
Pre-ordering.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm going to hang up the show because I'm actually not grumpy, but I sound grumpy, but I'm very much in a very happy space. But yeah, I just want this thing to take off. I want VR to happen. I have my reservations. I want, even if VR doesn't happen, I want VR audio or whatever we want to call it to happen, because I can see that being used so many different places. But I find it like the tail wagging the dog that we're looking for the visuals right now rather than looking for the audio. And as a business person, I would think, when you want to go with the one that you probably got a longer shelf life with. But the demand is not there. The demand is on the eyeballs, not the earballs.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, thanks for being on the show. Love seeing you. So next week is our 100th episode.
Oh man.
We are planning, like we always chat in our Slack and we go, what do you guys think we should do? And we've got, what would you say, 6 or 7 different ideas that we're trying to parse through and figure out what we're going to do. But they're all good ideas and they're all coming together equally. So we'll be as surprised as you all for our 100th episode.
It's kind of crazy, kind of amazing.
Absolutely, and thanks to you guys, it's reached that number. So, and all the viewers who are watching. So let me get up my spiel. I'm going to just fill in the dead air with humming. Thanks for watching the show, everybody, and a special thank you to the live chat room, the chatties. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. I wrote it down so I could remember what you do with which one. And we'll see you next week with Alex. Alex will be back. We forgot to say, Alex is traveling, lucky guy. Look at jet setter. So we didn't get him on the show, but we will see him next week.
Indeed.
Excellent.
And the rest of you as well.
And what?
And the rest of you, meaning not you, but
and you and
people out there.
And you and you and you and you. Okay, bye.
Bye.